and welcome to episode 5 of the Tales of Crisis. I'm your host, Martin Swaffield, and with me tonight once more is my co-host, James Chalmers. Good evening, Chalmers.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, very well. And your good self?
Not too bad. It's, can't be complaining too much. We've got good weather, and we're playing real life games, so yeah.
Makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Things are right in the world.
They're getting there. So in tonight's episode, we are going to talk about real life once more. I managed to get to my first real life event over the weekend down at 7th City Collectibles in Nottingham. So we'll talk about that. But before we get onto that, we're going to go through a little bit of hobby, and then we'll talk about some of the new releases. So, Mr. Chalmers, have you managed to do any MCP hobby recently? I know you've been very busy with other pieces.
No, that's the easiest way. I built the Guardians of the Galaxy about a month ago, and I don't think I've touched any since then.
Fair enough.
I've been, painting for other game systems, unfortunately.
Yep. And I have been not doing so well until probably the last 2 weeks, when I quickly realised that most of the roster that I wanted to take for this event was either unbought, unbuilt, or unpainted. So I
Best way to
managed
do
to
it.
fire through a couple of others. I did, thankfully, you were kind enough to lend me your MODOK, because there was no way I was going to get him painted that quickly. But I think the two key ones, I finished off Angela. I redid Taskmaster, which I was really not looking forward to, because I really wasn't happy with how I'd started with him. But by the end of it, I was quite chuffed with how he came out. I'm going to go back and do a couple more of the highlights on some of the orange and the white cloak. But that one came out all right. And then I quickly bashed out Black Cat, having last minute decided to stick her in the roster, having not used her at all before then.
Very nice. They did look very nice, actually. Seeing them, the fact that you only painted them in like the week, and Black Cat you painted in, what was it, the night before?
Yes, it was a bit of a rush. She's not too difficult to do in that she's black and white, but it was, again, I'm going to go back on her, but she was at a point I was quite happy with. So, yes, I was quite chuffed with my collection of 9 of mine and 1 of yours. They kind of look quite good when put together, which is half of what we're looking for at the end of the day. So, once more, Atomic Mass Games has been pumping out what feels like a constant stream of new models, along with new cards. And more recently, we've had the call them leaks. They're not leaks. They've shared the cards for Jean Grey and Cassandra. So they're the two we're going to talk about today. There have been some others in the UK. This weekend coming will be the Jean Grey Cassandra box, along with Falcon and, I always want to say Falcon and Winter Soldier, but Falcon and War Machine. And then Omega Red is going to be out as well. And I'm waiting to find out if he's going to be Criminal Syndicate affiliated or not before I decide to jump in on that one.
Yeah, they seem to have crept up, because they only got revealed a couple of weeks ago, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, they're out. It's tight. It's a bit weird sometimes with the launch kind of window for certain boxes. They just seem suddenly, some get revealed months in advance and others get revealed like a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think it's not unfair to say that not just Atomic Mass Games, that the gaming industry on the whole has struggled with being able to get them out as regularly as I'm sure they would have liked. So I think at certain points they've advertised some, and we know that Australia's a long way behind, unfortunately, for some of these. America, yes, I think, is behind us, but then Canada's ahead of us. So there's been plenty of frustrated posts on Facebook, etc. But I think they're doing the best they can, given where we are. The interesting thing is, though, once these come out, I think the only models that have been revealed is Blade and Moon Knight.
Yeah, they got revealed. The only other ones that are on affiliation cards that haven't been kind of shown off at all is Juggernaut and Colossus as well.
Yeah, like you said, we haven't even seen their models, yet alone cards. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what comes next, because it does feel like we've had a bit of a flurry, but then not sure what's coming in the next couple of months. And also, this weekend in the UK, you can buy a new building. So we've got the
Oh, it's the apartment block, isn't it?
apartment block. Yeah, I want to call it a brownstone. I don't know whether it officially is or not, but yeah, the apartment blocks. So they look great and a little pricey, but I'm sure at some point I'll pick one up. They do look really good.
It looks nice, and like I said, it is a little bit on the more expensive side. But when you compare it with plastic compared against MDF, and
Yep.
plastic is 10 times easier to paint than MDF, so even just for that, it will be definitely helpful. I know there's a lot of like extra little accessories that come with it as well. Different ways you can build the building, so should be nice. It's the first like size 5 building that's actually been officially like size 5 piece of terrain, I should say, from AMG. So
Absolutely.
no, really nice. I'm looking forward to seeing it in person as well, because as much as I want to buy it, a bit like you, I want to kind of wait a little while and kind of see it in person and see whether it is actually worth that money.
Yeah. So the two we're going to talk about, like I say, Jean Grey and Cassandra. So if we start with Jean Grey, so we're not going to read the card out. They are available online. Have a look through, and like I say, that they're out in some countries already, and they'll be out very soon in the UK. But Jean Grey is 5 threat. That's the key thing. And she's got a number of interesting superpowers. I think the one for me that I think has caught a lot of people off when they first read it, and myself included, is the matter transmutation, which is choose another character with an activated token within 2 and push it short. Character can be moved by the superpower only once per turn. So when I first read it, and I think many people as well, this did feel like it had quite a few limitations to it, shall we say. So they have to have already had an activated token. Range 2 isn't that far. It's a push, not an advance, so that limits where you can put them. It doesn't. It's not a push away, so it's multi-directional, but it's still a push. And it is 3 power as well. So if you think of like the likes of Bow to the Will of Modoc and Enchantress's version of that, they're both 2 power. But upon rereading it, it's choose another character. It's not choose an enemy character.
Yeah.
So that, I think, adds a bit of flexibility. Now, I still think it's a difficult one because it is 3 power, and the chances of, racking up 9 power to do it 3 times is going to be tough. Whereas, especially on the likes of Modoc, it's not unusual to have 6 power on him at the end to then move a load of pieces around. Whereas, as I say, Jean Grey, I think you're going to be doing a lot less, but it still could be massively impactful. What were your thoughts on this?
I think for certain missions, it's going to be really strong for you, like for actually playing it against your teammates. Like you got someone holding an objective, you want them to get away because X is in range to attack them twice, or they can do something else. Then you can actually move them 2, and then they've got to spend one of their activations to then get in range again. But yeah, I think you're going to see some little tricks that people probably haven't thought about, like when they kind of think of it, and they, like you said, a lot of people think, oh, they can move my characters, but actually when they start moving their teammates around the table, then it suddenly gets a bit, especially if you use Jane Grey like in your last activation, and like potentially if you get priority the next turn, so if your opponent's still got one activation to go, then you could push a character further up the table into position to then activate first next turn.
Absolutely, and there will be plenty of tips and tricks because she gains an additional power in the power phase. So very much like the Asgardian, she's getting 2 power per power phase, and I think that means this comes online a lot sooner. She's got the Psionic Bolt, which is range 4, and it's a 5 dice mystical, so there's a good chance of her gaining power from that.
It's got sap power as well, so
Does have sap power, so again, it's got that chance. And I think that there are tips and tricks. I mean, the one that jumps to my mind is in X-Men, get this online round 1, you could move one of your characters who hasn't been yet in front of another one. You can then use Storm's X-Men ability to leapfrog one over the one that's moved, which means that they're gaining even further as part of that. And you kind of getting one flank is getting extra movement quite a bit. The other one that jumped to my mind was Criminal Syndicate, but again, and that was, you do that at the end, you move your people back onto secures because they're counting as 2, and it's all about the secure play really with Criminal Syndicate.
yeah.
That's got a chance. But overall, I can't see Jean Grey being used much outside of X-Men. I think there are better 5 threats out there. Time will tell, but it just feels like...
It's a bit of a weird one because we've obviously had Scarlet Witch come out. Well, I was going to say recently, but it's now a couple of months.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people expected Jean Grey to be kind of the better version.
Yes.
But I think people need to realise this is a pre-Phoenix Jean Grey, so she's still very much I was going to say bog standard X-Men, but if you're an X-Men and a mutant, you're not really bog standard. But yeah, she's nowhere near as powerful as what she could be. Like once she's got the kind of the power of the Phoenix in her. So I think she's got a place in a few. Like I said, Threat 5 is quite hard to handle. Like when there are other better Threat 5s out there. The one thing I would have preferred for her was that a bit like kind of Magneto, etc. Like she defends on a mystical defense because she's only got 3 physical, so it's not a lot of defense against a lot of physical attacks out there.
It's not, and I can see because of that and many other things, I can see her hanging back. And again, when I think of X-Men, you've already got Storm doesn't really want to get too much into the throw of things. Cyclops is happy to hang back and use his beam. So I think she's contesting with a lot of the existing X-Men for that sit back maybe on the home Gamma or the home of a D. And again, it kind of just feels like what is she doing over and above some of the others? So
yeah,
interesting to see how she gets used. Talking of solid, or shall we say stronger, 5 threats, Cassandra Nova.
Yes.
Cassandra Nova Xavier, what a great name. So she's the other side of the pack, and again, 5 threat, feels more powerful. Couple of key things here is she's got biokinesis, which is choose an enemy character within 3 and it gains root and slow conditions, which we don't see a lot of root. Slow obviously is one of the more, I say, popular. There's quite a lot of superpowers or attacks that can hand out slow.
Yeah.
But I think that one will come up quite a lot. And then we've got Psychic Distraction. So when an enemy character ends a movement within 3 of this character may use this superpower, roll 4 dice, and the enemy character suffers damage for each crit and wild rolled. If this superpower deals at least 1 damage, this character can advance short. So again, we've seen this quite a lot, barring the advance on characters where it's like Rocket Raccoon's booby traps. Green Goblin's got the same, Mysterio's got the same. So there's quite a few of those out there. I do like that. It's only 2 power. But we get the advance, which I think Mysterio has as well on his now. So again, starting to see a theme coming through where there's more and more of these types of ones. I do think that's quite good.
Yeah, I like it. I think giving that like her a move. I don't know how close you do want to get her into up the table. Like she's got a couple of mid-range attacks, and then her kind of spender is the flesh manipulation is the kind of range 2. The thing I like is a mind possession attack. For 1 power, it's 6 dice, range 3.
Yep.
And after the attack's resolved, you advance the target character at speed.
Exactly. But just going back to the psychic distraction, I think the view there is they walk in to range, they get blown up, and you just walk away.
Yeah, because you can advance away, can't you? Rather
exactly. I know advance always feels like you're advancing, but you're advancing backwards.
Yeah.
So I think that again helps her out in that it helps her stay out of trouble.
Well, especially with the telepathic cloak, where you have to be within 3 to actually target her.
Yes. So essentially a stealth on her there. But you mentioned there the mind possession. So it feels very much like it's because it is an attack, it does cost you an action, so it's slightly different. But in essence, this is giving you a deception for 1 power. And we all know how powerful deception was on Mystique. Now, Mystique's a long mover, and so it means she can get places that maybe Cassandra can't. But this doesn't have the limitation of deception in that this can still happen even if you are within 2 of another character.
Mm-hmm.
Range 3, yes, fine. It's quite short range for a character like this that maybe you don't want because she's only got, as you say, the 2 physical. But if you've got enough power, if you're sat on 3 power, you can get within 3, pull your target towards you, do your psychic distraction for the 2 power, and then move away.
Yeah.
Which that combo is, I can see, causing a lot of problems. On top of that, she also has her own personal brace for impact. So if this character would suffer a collision, it may use this superpower. This character does not suffer damage from this collision. It is 2 power as opposed to 1 for brace. It does only affect herself. But even then, I think that's fantastic. And
still strong.
Yeah.
Like with 2 defense and a physical.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it stops her kind of just getting flattened by a lot of characters. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Healing factor of 1 and 7 health. You know, she's not going to be easy to put away. Put it like that.
No, definitely not. No, she's gonna be good on the table. I think she's gonna see a lot of visibility. I was just having a look through. I can't actually see her listed on any of the affiliations
at the moment, which is going to be interesting. And it's a little bit interesting because I don't know at what point they are updating the affiliation lists. I think it's once they come out in America.
Right.
Obviously, these aren't. So anybody picking her up is not going to be able to play her affiliated yet.
That's what I mean. Like Jane Grey, she's already in Uncanny X-Men.
She is.
Which is a strange one, but
yeah. Well, it suggests that Cassandra is definitely not going to be in X-Men.
She'll be in Brotherhood, I fully expect. I can't see her being in anything else. Like maybe Cabal, but I don't know. It doesn't really fit.
Unless she's gonna, I don't think she's coming with her own affiliation.
No, she wouldn't have her own affiliation.
So we shall see. But yes, it's going to be interesting to see where she slots in. I do feel that every now and then AMG throw us a random curveball with affiliations, just when you think, oh, this one's going to go here, and all of a sudden they're somewhere else. So, yeah, it will be interesting because they've also said that Omega Red, who's coming out as well, is in 2 affiliations, but they haven't said which 2. They said he's in 2 affiliations, neither of which contain the X, letter X. So no
Oh, again,
X-Force
it would
and no X-Men, but we don't know
Brotherhood of
where else.
Mutants, and then c- maybe Cabal or Criminal Syndicate, I expect.
That seems to be the current thinking, is that it's probably going to be Criminal Syndicate and Brotherhood. But again, we
Yeah.
shall wait and see.
I mean, Brotherhood's almost nailed on because, I mean, he is a mutant, so and he's from the X-Men series, so it kind of goes hand in hand that he should go there.
I
And
don't know, was he ever with Magneto? I must admit, I'm not too
um,
hot on my X-Men / Brotherhood.
I'm trying to go back because a lot of this is based on the TV series, isn't it? So, like, kind of the same style or
Yes.
kind of same era, I should say. I know he fought Wolverine a lot. Uh, I'm sure he is in the Brotherhood. I just cannot picture him in it.
Yeah.
Um, and it would kind of make sense if like him and Cassandra both went in there because it fills out that roster quite well. Um, like Brotherhood's kind of with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch has had a couple of new additions, but apart from that, I mean, it's listing Juggernaut in there who still isn't out, so you're still only Magneto, Mystique, Quicksilver, Sabretooth, Scarlet Witch, and Toad. Still feels like there should be a couple of extras in there.
I'm sure it will build over time, but like I say, I'm not sure whether him and Magneto necessarily saw eye to eye. So we shall wait and see. This is the beauty of this. There are just so many um, comic book runs that they can pull on
Yes,
and go with where they want. So yes,
we shall see.
indeed. So I haven't actually ordered any of those yet. However, I have ordered some extras today, which we shall cover later on, as to why I've gone down that route. Um,
Okay.
so yes, but yeah, these three I haven't. None of these jumped out. Like I say, I'm waiting to see whether or not Omega Red is in Criminal Syndicate, and if he is, then I may well investigate putting him in. But at the moment, none of the others have a massive appeal to me. So, moving therefore on to the weekend.
The weekend and your event. Or not your event,
Indeed,
but the event you attended.
the event I attended. So we went down to 7th City Collectibles in Nottingham. Never been down before, but the event was advertised a while ago, and it was originally it was going to be myself, Lee, and Thomas. Unfortunately, Thomas had to pull out due to work commitments, so it was just myself and Lee, and it was just a one-day event with 5 games. Now, coming from AOS, 3 games is standard for a one-day event. 5 games is standard for a 2-day event. So trying to do 5 games in one day was an interesting prospect, to say the
Sounds like
least.
hell to me.
90 minutes around, so quite fast. I think, again, in TTS, we're used to longer rounds. But actually, I think once you play in real life, it really doesn't take as long. I'm not really sure why, because TTS is set up to make life so much easier for you. But I don't think it really is that
I
bad.
think it's more just you're chatting away, aren't you? And like even in real life, you can chat away, but you're still playing the game like there. Whereas you sat on the PC and you're just chatting, you can just kind of just take your time almost.
Yeah, could be. So, no, it's good. And like I said, the one day as we did on TTS were they had an hour break between them, between the games, which was good because if you're doing on TTS, chances are you're at home, and therefore it gave me a chance to go and talk to the family, etc. between games. So it kind of didn't feel like I was away for the entire day,
Yeah,
and it gave you a good mental break. So, what did I take? I hear
I
you
don't
all
know.
ask.
What did you take?
Indeed. So, leading up to this, I'd been part of season 5 on the TTS League, and to say it hadn't gone to plan is a slight understatement. I finished on Well, I finished on 1 and 5, but realistically I finished 0 and 5 because the last game my opponent couldn't make it, and therefore I was given the win, but in reality there was just no game. So I'm discarding that. So 0 and 5, I had some close games that were dice decided, but in reality I hadn't done very well, and I must admit my confidence was pretty low at that point.
And
Not a great showing.
were you using the same kind of list that you were considering taking to this
Similar.
event?
So I'd done Asgard in the first part of it, and I'd gone back to Criminal Syndicate in the second half of it, and I ran an Asgard Criminal Syndicate roster over the weekend. I had tweaked some bits and pieces, but in general, that's where I was going. I think my issue with Asgard in the league and had been previously is they're great when you roll well, but I find that far too often, if you don't get those key rolls, they fall to pieces. And
Yeah.
that sounds wrong when you look at it on paper. They should be much stronger. You look at the pieces they've got, and they're seen all over the shop. The only piece that you don't see in rosters outside of Asgard is Thor, which is unfortunate because he's the one you've got to take. But
Yeah.
Valkyrie, Angela, Enchantress, they're everywhere. 3 very strong, very, you get a lot of value from those. But I think they're all characters that do better outside of the affiliation as splash characters, which is unfortunate. So I'd gone with the classic Criminal Syndicate Asgard. For those that aren't sure why that's such a classic, it's mainly because Criminal Syndicate counters 2 on secures. However, on the ones which we call pay to flip, they don't get the bonus. So the ones where you have to roll dice in order to take a secure, as opposed to getting it by having the most number of models next to it, they don't benefit. Whereas Asgard tend to do quite well on those ones because they've got the extra power. So going up and trying to interact with a secure on round 1 means they've still got power to go and pick up a extract at the same time. And they tend to have pretty good physical and energy defense as well, which tends to be what you're rolling on. So it's a bit of a classic setup, and I went with Thor, Angela, Enchantress, Valkyrie as my 4 Asgardians, Kingpin, Taskmaster, Crossbones, MODOK as my 4 core Criminal Syndicates, Okoye, because I needed a 2-threat, and Okoye is by far, for me, the best 2-threat. She works well in both Asgard and Criminal Syndicate as a tough piece to get.
She's solid.
I also like her to bodyguard for MODOK. And then I had an optional 10th slot that throughout the week flicked between Luke Cage, who had got painted up and I liked the paint job on him, and I'd used him a couple of times to good effect. Mystique, because I wanted a long range, a long mover, and then I could take Deception, and I kind of fancied that. But then I made the last minute decision to go Black Cat. Again, long range, but also the key with Black Cat is she's part of Criminal Syndicate, so she's affiliated, so she's another affiliated 3, and she has Cat Burglar, which essentially is Amora's Kiss from Enchantress.
Yeah.
So I had the potential of having 2 on the board that could go and steal extracts. So the plan was use Criminal Syndicate mostly, where the crisis worked for them, sit on secures, and go and try and steal an extract or 2, and win that way. Team Tactics cards. So Brace and Medpack were my restricted cards, which is very standard for me. Climbing Gear, which I always take with Criminal Syndicate because it allows you to get back onto a point. Odin's Blessing and Rainbow Bridge, which are the 2 Asgard ones, which I always take. Advanced R&D, pretty standard. Then I took Shadow Organization for Criminal Syndicate. The logic there was, and I know most people prefer All According to Plan, which is the one where you basically pay 10 power across your team and you steal priority.
Yeah.
I find the way I play Criminal Syndicate, I don't want priority very often. I'm quite happy to be going last because I want to move on to the secures last without somebody pushing me off.
Yeah.
And Shadow Organization basically means that you can't be targeted unless you're within 2, and that means that it cuts down the likes of Shuri, who can be a real pain for Criminal Syndicate when you sat all your people on all your secures and then Shuri
Just get
activates
pushed
last
off.
and just pushes you off.
Yeah.
So, you can get one round, and that tends to be the swing round of 2 or 3, where you put that on and it just means that it stops people from moving you all around.
Yeah.
And then my 8th card, again, a last minute inclusion, never used before, and I never actually got to use it, Illicit Tech. And this is a new one that came in the Sin Viper box. Because at one point I was going to run Sin and put a Sin Cabal in there, but so I picked up Sin. And this one basically gives you a range 5 energy attack that either Crossbones or Sin can use. I think it's 1 power. I think it's 6 dice energy. But the key thing to this is after the attack had been made, the character that you targeted gains Incinerate, as do all other characters within 2.
Oh wow, that's pretty solid.
So my plan was to stick that on and then go to town. As I say, it didn't quite work out like that, but it was a great plan. Then we've got my extracts were Research Station Attacked, which is essentially the extract that plays like a secure, which again gives Criminal Syndicate a bit of flex there. Struggle for the Cube, Worthy, and then my secures was Gamma Wave, Marefisk, and Riots. So
Pretty solid.
Yeah, I was quite confident with it because I'd used Criminal Syndicate quite a lot. Like I said, the only things there that I hadn't used going into the weekend was Illicit Tech and Black Cat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was quite happy with what I had going into it. Bit of a long drive, to say the least. I'm never the best on tournament weekends driving. You set your alarm for a certain time, but I always wake up well before it because I think my brain doesn't trust me to actually get up when the alarm goes off. So unfortunately I was up at 4 o'clock, which made for quite a long day. Went and picked Lee up and we got down there. It wasn't a bad drive and we got down there well in time. The place was, to be honest, I would have driven past it had it not been for the car in front of me pulled in. Google Maps was saying it was in that area and then the car pulled in. It was, it looked like an old warehouse, to be honest. It looked pretty downtrodden from the outside, but inside it was really nice.
Nice.
So we went in there. It's a decent sized shop. It's not huge, but I think they had a capacity of 32 for Marvel Crisis, and Marvel doesn't take up a lot of room, so it's quite good.
Yeah, it's not a bad size. Yeah, nice.
Because we are still in COVID, we were in pods, which meant that you were in a pod of 6 and you played everybody in that pod. And he done it so based on who was travelling with who, which made sense. So myself and Lee were in a pod with 3 other people who had lived in Nottingham and kind of were friends together, and the store owner was the ringer because there was an odd number as such. So that was our little pod. Within that pod was 3 defenders lists.
Oh, okay.
Which kind of took both me and Lee by surprise. Not what we were expecting at all. I'd only played against defenders twice up until that point. Once Tom when he was learning it, and then once in the league where I'd got destroyed by Hulk going and grabbing 3 cubes.
Right. Okay.
So I knew that play, and there was somebody running Hulk, and I was like, I'm ready for that one. But the rest of it was quite new to me. So I had a good schooling in how defenders play.
Yeah.
So game 1 was against Dan, who was running defenders. I lost priority, and he was running sorry, I lost priority, and he picked Gamma, I believe, and I picked Hammers.
Okay.
So he then went with 18 threat, which I was a little bit surprised by. And talking to him, he hadn't played a lot. I think he said this was like his sixth or seventh game. Now, whether or not he'd played on TTS and that was just in real life or not, I wasn't too sure. But
Yeah.
he did the classic mistake of, I asked him a couple of questions about his list. I said to him, is there anything you want to know about mine? Ask away. And he said, I'll probably ask as we go because there's probably too many questions. I said, are you sure? Anything? He's like, no, I'll ask as we go. I think it wasn't until round 2 that he realised that Criminal Syndicate counted twice.
Right. Okay.
So, I probably should have flagged that and said, look, at least you know this bit because that is quite a large part, but he was kind of trying to work it out as he went. So he ran Doctor Strange, a Luke Cage, Ant-Man, Taskmaster, and Daredevil. Now,
Okay.
I've never played against Ant-Man before, and I didn't realise quite how much jank there is in Ant-Man. There's a lot
Yeah,
of
he's got his shrink and enlarge, doesn't he?
shrink and large, move, place within 3, place within 1, a whole raft of stuff. So I was a bit bedazzled by Ant-Man, I must admit. Other than that, I kind of know what Doctor Strange does, although I probably underestimated certain elements of him over the course of the day. Luke Cage I'd run, so I kind of knew what he was going to do. Taskmaster I run a lot, and Daredevil kind of know what he's going to do, but I made a bit of a mistake with him.
Right.
Game ended 19-11 to me. It was a good game. Like I say, you made that mistake. I think he was on the back foot from that point. He did some good plays. He used the portals, I think, to round 2 or 3 to put Daredevil through. And because we were Gammas and we were quite bunched up, Daredevil came through and did his
spender that.
whatever it is, the spender, which is, I think it starts with a base of 2 dice, but then you get an extra 2 for every model that's within 2 of you. I had 3 models within 2 of him, so he was doing 3 8-dice attacks, which was painful. I think he had a hammer as well at the time. So that was pretty painful. Thankfully, I managed to survive it. MODOK did what MODOK does and managed to move people around along with Enchantress. Sorry, I was running Kingpin, Black Cat, MODOK, Enchantress, and Okoye.
Okay.
And I wouldn't necessarily say it went to plan, but I was able to get his back Gamma a couple of times, which makes all the difference.
Of course, you pick, yeah.
I was able to more or less keep my back hammer. I think it was MODOK in the end that went and got the back Gamma, which was good, and I managed to put. I always used to forget to do this in my early days with Criminal Syndicate. It's something I've consciously tried to do more often. I managed to get a couple of hammers onto MODOK by passing them off with the Criminal Syndicate side of it.
All right, yeah.
So that was a good game. I was feeling good after that one. Game 2, again, lost priority. So there's a running theme here. And this was against Lee, who I travelled down with, and he was running Wakanda. And we've been talking in the car on the way down how strong Wakanda are. And I'd been listening to, I think it was the Strike Better podcast. A very good podcast. Go and check them out. Listening to those guys the night before, and they were talking through some of the stats, and they've got a ridiculous win rate. They are super strong, and they're just so difficult to deal with. So this was the one I was probably looking forward to the least. And he went with Black Panther, Okoye, Shuri, Valkyrie, and Medusa. So we played Mayor Fisk and Research Station. So we were at 16. I kind of knew what he was going to run. The only thing that he ran differently to what I thought was he had Medusa instead of Enchantress. But before he revealed it, I said, let me guess. because I knew he was going to have Black Panther, Okoye, Shuri.
Yeah.
Then it leaves you with 7 points. Just looking at what he had, it was going to be Valkyrie and I thought Enchantress,
Something.
but he went Medusa instead, which I think was probably his undoing.
Right.
I went Kingpin, Crossbones, Taskmaster, Enchantress, and Okoye. It was the only game we didn't finish. So both of us played 5 games that day, and for both of us, that was the only game that didn't finish. Finished 10-4. And I
Right.
think that was. Did we get? I think we'd just finished round 3 on that one. So it was quite slow. We both were being quite particular about what we were doing. We've played each other a number of times. It's always odd when you play a regular opponent in a tournament. I think, like I say, his mistake was not. Well, for me, there were 2 things. 1, not taking Enchantress, and 2, taking Research Station. Like, he knew I was leaning on Criminal Syndicate, and Criminal Syndicate love Research Station. So that's the new one where, as you control it, you can move it. As you move it, you get more points.
Yeah.
My logic on that was I didn't need to commit much in order to do Mayor Fisk. So I only needed to put 1 character on each of the 2 Mayor Fisk witnesses. There you go.
Yeah.
I put Kingpin on the left, so he was more or less out of the game, but he sat on that and he scored me 2 points every round.
That's what he needs to do.
On
Sit
the
on an
right,
objective and
yeah,
score away.
on the right, he put Shuri out there, so I contested it a couple of times, but I didn't actually win that one. My logic was to go and win the center round 1, push it up towards him, and then go on to the outsides. And then just say, right, I'm up. It's going to take you, because if you get the researcher near your research station, you score an extra 2 victory points in the following power phase. But I knew that I could push it once, which would mean he'd need to push it 3 times in order to score that extra 1. All of those rounds, I'll be scoring 4 to his 2. So I knew just by doing that, I would be able to get up, and I activated Enchantress last. I moved most of his pieces off it with Enchantress because he'd huddled them all together because he was worried that I was counting as 2 on there. Huddled his guys together, so I did maybe 1 or 2 beams in order to get me the power, and then moved everybody away. So I then won it, was able to move it towards him. The way things turned out, actually, it was better for me to try get it a second time, and I got it the second time. And actually, I think we just played the 2. Did we just play the 2 rounds? I can't remember. But yeah, it was a struggle from the start. Once Enchantress was moving his guys around, and he didn't have a way to cope with it. So that was a really intense game, and I must admit at that point I was flagging. It reminded me when I used to run Zinch for AOS, and you just constantly having to think 3 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I found during the day was, yes, the games are shorter, but they're much more intense. In AOS, I feel like you can switch off for a little bit.
Definitely, yeah. Well, maybe not now in the new edition, but yeah, in the old edition, you definitely could almost switch off in your opponent's turn and just roll dice when needed.
Yeah, movement especially, you could go, right, you do your movements, let me know once you've moved. Yeah, they're shooting fine in combat maybe, but in general, hero phase, they just do what they do and you take your models off.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you're just constantly you, the me, then you, the me, and even when it's them doing something, you're rolling dice and it's constantly focusing. So I was flagging at that point, went and got some lunch. Game 3, I was still probably flagging. Played against Ryan with his defenders. We did Merfisk again. So this is the one I actually won priority. So this is the only game I won priority on. Went Merfisk again, and he went alien ships.
Okay.
I probably made a mistake here. He was running defenders, but he had a lot of big characters, and you'll see in a minute which ones turned up. So I went for the lower threat value. obviously alien ship is 20, and I decided to go 16. I just played 16. I was relatively comfortable with that roster or with that team. And yes, that team was good on the last one, but it probably wasn't the right team to play on this one.
Yeah.
And he ran Doctor Strange with the Soul Gem, Amazing Spider-Man, and MODOK,
Okay.
which shocked me quite a bit. That was not what I was expecting to come through. And then I had Kingpin, Crossbones, Taskmaster, Enchantress, and Okoye, what I had last time. I was a little unlucky on this, I feel, but on the grand scheme of things, I probably didn't deal with it as well as I could have done. He bunched all his deployment in the middle, whereas I kind of put some on the outsides because I knew I needed to get the 2 witnesses, and I kind of felt, well, if he gets the alien ship in the middle, then so be it. I'd put Enchantress in the middle, and I thought she'll go up and just steal it off them.
Yeah.
I think I must have rolled for the Kree Power Core 4, maybe 5 times. Hadn't got it. I think he'd already rolled once, and on his second roll he got it. So Doctor Strange picked it up, and where he picked it up from the centre, but in essence, because it meant that we were playing C map, so you had the 3 across the middle. He'd put his portal turn 1 or round 1 next to MODOK and Strange and put it slightly to my left, so between the centre and left power core. And he'd send Amazing Spider-Man down my right, Doctor Strange and MODOK down the left. Doctor Strange found it in the middle, and that's where he had his powerhouse. Or I had Kingpin and Okoye out on the right that were kind of stranded.
Right.
Crossbones, Enchantress, and Taskmaster more on the left, or central.
Mm-hmm.
He killed Crossbones start of round 2 and killed Enchantress start of round 3.
Ew.
I was struggling, basically, because Amazing Spider-Man was on the side where he didn't have the Kree Power Core. He was able to move him across, whereas Kingpin and Okoye couldn't move across because they're too slow. So he essentially was able to put 16 threat against Taskmaster, Enchantress, and Crossbones, and they faltered pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like I said, it probably was. I could have done it a lot better. The game finished 16-10 to him, so it wasn't
Okay.
a long way off. But I was hemorrhaging characters left, right, and centre, and every time I looked up, all his characters seemed to have plenty of power and no health off them. Because
Right in
Doctor
front of your
Strange is
guys.
just curing, healing everybody. So yeah, I learned a lot there. It wasn't what I expected. I hadn't played Amazing Spider-Man before. I knew what MODOK did, but I didn't really have. I put Crossbones up against him to try and attack him in that sense. I didn't have the throws. Kingpin was across the other side. Maybe I should have put Kingpin up against him. Yeah, it didn't. And Enchantress was dazed, I think, near the start of 2. I think he managed to kill Crossbones and then daze Enchantress in his first activation in round 2. And then kill Enchantress, his first activation of round 3. So Enchantress didn't get to move anybody around or steal Doctor Strange's the extract. Okoye did alright along with Kingpin against the Amazing Spider-Man, but then it was just an uphill struggle from that point.
How did you find Amazing Spider-Man? 'Cause is that one of the first times you played him?
It's the first time I played against him. Yeah. He was good. He wasn't. He didn't need to do much. I think that was the key. MODOK and Doctor Strange did the work in that game, and it went well for them. Amazing Spider-Man has the speed, and he was on the side that he needed to quickly get out of, so he was able to do that. But no, he's got a good attack suite. He was able to deal with whatever I threw at him So it was impressive. It's going to be more impressive to see what he's like, where he's the key part of it. So yeah, it was interesting to see how that goes. My logic in this game was to focus on Modok because I knew if I could get rid of Modok, that would really cause him problems, and I
Yeah.
kind of felt I could. I knew Strange would just heal himself, but actually Strange just healed Modok, and I think
Oh,
that's
okay.
probably where we'll talk about it at the end, but my conclusions are probably need to go stronger after Doctor Strange. And that's probably where what I felt was I didn't focus on Doctor Strange at all, and that's probably where I went wrong. So then, bubble blown. My wonderful 5-0 was never going to happen. Um, then I played Jay with defenders, and from what I understand, Jay is a very good player across a number of different systems.
Okay.
So found that out afterwards. Um, Played again, lost priority, Riots and Montesi, and I hadn't played Montesi in ages, so it was interesting to play Montesi. And he was running Strange, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Enchantress, and Rocket Raccoon.
Oh, okay.
Um, I had Kingpin, Crossbones, Taskmaster, Enchantress, and Black Cat. And this is probably the only game where I never felt like I had a chance. I just was constantly on the back foot. I feel like he played a really solid game here.
Right.
The last one I felt like had a couple of things gone differently, I would have had a chance. Um, you know, whereas this one, he played a really solid game. He had answers to everything. His Enchantress won the Battle of the Enchantresses, to be fair.
Yeah.
Again, it always felt like he had plenty of power and never really took much damage. I'm not sure why that was the case in both games. I know Strange can get, in the first game, Strange had the Soul Gem, so he's getting power every time you use a superpower, and he's getting power, I think it's every time you roll a shield. He rolls a shield, so I can see that, and we know MODOK loves power and can get it quite easily. Whereas in this one, again, I don't know whether it's because Strange is constantly getting power and healing everybody, so people are getting power because they're being attacked, but then Strange heals them, and therefore they've still got the power, but they haven't necessarily lost that much health.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I just felt like I was on the back foot for a lot of this game. I tried a couple of things. Black Cat went up to Rocket Raccoon to steal something. Um, One of the things that I didn't realise, which fair play to him, in Riots, you can use the Extremis console to heal another character. I always thought it was just you healed yourself, but you can interact with it and heal another character. So,
Oh, okay.
it was interesting to learn. Because he'd done it at one point. I was like, you can't do that. So you can't. And I read it. And I was like, oh yeah, been played Riots for many many games and
Yeah, yeah.
used the interact many times, but never thought to use it for somebody else. Um, and yeah, I made multiple mistakes. I didn't use. One of the reasons I went for Riots was because I wanted that extra security of being able to heal myself, but actually I found myself never having enough power to do it. Um, that looking back, that was the game that probably I was most disappointed with. In that I just never felt like I had a chance. I felt like with the other game that I lost, I had a chance. It just didn't pan out. Fair enough. But this one, I just felt like I was on the back foot all the way through. Having said that, it was only 11-16 that I lost by.
Okay,
So it
that's not
wasn't,
bad. Yeah, yeah, that
again,
was
it wasn't a
quite close.
huge one, but at no point did I feel like I could win that game.
Yeah, yeah. If you feel like you're kind of like almost fighting an uphill battle from the off, it's quite hard to actually pull it out the bag almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I just always felt like I was on the back foot. So, but it was, again, it was a great game. I learned a lot. I learned, Iron Fist did his Superman punch, or whatever it's called, where the 9 dice didn't actually do that much damage, and I was quite chuffed. And then he was like, "And now you're activated," and I forgot about that bit.
Ah, probably the biggest thing from it.
Yeah, and just a couple of bits and pieces where the dice didn't, we both commented on it a couple of times that the dice didn't go my way. Um, but, that's one that even if the dice had gone my way, I don't think, as I say, I never felt like I was in any form of control of that game.
Yeah.
Then the final game was against Will, who was the store owner or whoever ran the store. And he was just filling in to make the numbers up. Great guy. It was a really enjoyable game. And he was running Criminal Syndicate with Sin Cabal as his other affiliation. And he had quite an interesting one because I didn't realize Mysterio was affiliated with Criminal Syndicate, but he was running Mysterio and Craven. So, again, lost priority. He picked Mutant Madmen. I picked Hammers. I was surprised when he picked Mutant Madmen that he then ran Criminal Syndicate because you don't gain the benefit from it.
Yeah.
He went Kingpin, Zemo, Mysterio, Craven, Bob, and Black Cat. So he went 6 wide, which was interesting. Again, kind of looked at it and thought, oh, okay, fine. So playing 18 threat. And because I was 2 and 2 and, we're just there then just have a bit of fun, I thought, well, we'll give Asgard a go. I'd run 3 Criminal Syndicates, but we'll try Asgard. So I went Thor, Angela, Valkyrie, Okoye, and Black Cat.
Nice.
Really fun game, really interesting. He didn't use Bob's rocket at all.
Okay.
But the threat of it was there. And I do wonder whether or not that's not such a bad way to do it. Because there were a
Mind
couple of
games.
times he moved Bob to go and capture secures, pick up extracts. And you never really wanted to go too close to him because you were always worried that 9 dice. However, I think nearer the end he probably should have done it when he was on the back foot. Other than that, it was interesting to see how Mysterio worked. Craven I took out quite early and didn't really get a chance to do much. His Black Cat stole an extract, my Black Cat stole an extract, so we kind of exchanged a couple of times from that perspective. The 2 key takeaways, I suppose, he used his Kingpin better than I had in my 4 games. And I think that's one of the areas I really need to improve is my use of Kingpin. He kind of gets stuck out of the way. I never really feel like he contributes as a 4 threat, and I know a lot of people really like him. I don't use his throw as much as I should. I think I'm too quick to spend power on reducing damage. When maybe I'd be better off keeping a bit of power for myself so that I can at least do a throw. And maybe risk losing him earlier. I'm not sure. It's one of those ones where I'm going to have to play around. But I definitely feel like there's more I could do with Kingpin.
Yeah.
And the other one was Angela did an Angela. So she was on 3 power. He'd gone and stolen some. I think he'd stolen her hammer, and then he'd gone off and he basically had 3 of his characters near Black Cat. Because Angela didn't have a hammer, she ended up on something like 8 power because she'd been stood out the way, not really doing much. And I was able to do Rainbow Bridge just on her. Didn't have enough power to do it on anybody else. I didn't really need to do it on anybody else. She then attacked first off into Bob because I knew he would be an easy kill.
Yeah.
Triggered the assassination for just the 2 power. Then went into, I think, his Black Cat. Because I'd killed Bob, I'd taken Bob's hammer. I then killed Black Cat with just 1 attack. She dropped her hammer. I picked up her hammer. I then went into... So dazed Bob, killed Black Cat because she'd already been dazed. And I can't remember who was next to her. I think it was Zemo. I then killed Zemo with the final attack. And I was in position to throw something at him anyway, and I had enough power to throw something if he hadn't died from that. But essentially, yeah, in 1 activation, she managed to KO 2 of his characters and daze another. And we were laughing about it because she does it sometimes. Sometimes she can go across, fail on that first one, then the second one's just an anticlimax, and it all just gets a little bit. But it was a bit of a perfect storm in that I was able to use Rainbow Bridge to get there, so I didn't need to waste an action on that.
Yeah.
I was then able to bounce around doing the attacks with the assassination and what have you. So, yeah, he took it well. It was one of those ones where it then made me think maybe I'd run Angela more often. Because I had got to the point where I was like, push Asgard out the way. But then it made me think, well, actually, maybe. So,
I miss her.
yeah, it's kind of a one where I almost wish she hadn't, and I could have shut the box on those guys. But yeah, so that finished 21-11. I just
nice.
cleaned up. I think at the end I had all 4 traps and 3 of the hammers. So
Yeah.
and I was on 15 points I think before that. So it was something along those lines. So it was quite a comprehensive win in the end.
Very nice.
So finished 3-2. Happy with that. On the way down, me and Lee were talking that 50-50 was what we were aiming for. We knew that it was going to be hard because you just don't know who you're up against.
Yeah.
So 3-2 was fine, and Lee finished 2-3.
Nice.
We both lost to the same 2 people, and we both won against the same 2 people, and our game was the kind of decider between the 2 of us. So I think it was Jay finished in our pod 5-0.
Very nice.
I think Dan finished 0-5. Then Ryan was 3-2 along with myself, and then Lee and Will were 2-3. And I think they recorded it as victory point differences, and I think based on that, I ended up second out of the pod. But we didn't formally do any of that. It was just the top winners. So
right.
Overall, it was a really good day, and I peaked, halfway through game 4. I think, even though game 4 felt like I'd never had a plan for it, I kind of energy levels wise, I definitely started to get back at that point, and game 5 was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And then long drive home. The only disappointment, I suppose, from the day was the way, because we were in pods, etc. The way it went was we took a picture of our rosters, posted up on the Facebook event, and then people needed to vote from that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't get a good picture of it. It is what it is. I don't think I got any votes for it, and I think that was my disappointment because I'm really pleased with some of my models.
Yeah, some of your models are really nice.
But given that, and then given the fact that some of the others had the same limitations, it is what it is. So yeah, I think that's probably one to look at for next time, is to try and tat up some of those models and keep on that, because quite pleased with how they've all come out.
You almost need to do some pre-event photos if that's how they can do it
Well,
again.
yeah, I think,
like
you say, it was just because of COVID and because we were in the pods. It just meant that was the only way they could do it. They didn't want people walking around looking at other people's because of that. So that totally understandable. And anything they managed to do in the COVID space was good. Managed to make it home before midnight, which was impressive. Listen to England win, which was a good finish to the day. But I think the things that I drew from it all was, I'm going to go heavy on Criminal Syndicate. I think Research Station basically gives you that ability that if you're forced to go with extracts, you've got a good chance of being able to pick an extract that suits you.
Yeah.
And even if you don't get that, and that's one of the discarded ones, you still got the extract ability to pass it off. Got Black Cat now, maybe keep Enchantress, so you can go and steal some. I think there are, even if you get put into a pay to flip scenario for the secures, being able to flip it to then play the extract game, I think is definitely doable with them.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably end up putting Toad in for a Herbs play, so I've got Herbs as an alternative. And And yeah, I'm going to lean into some of the spider foes as well. So I'm definitely going to start playing around with Mysterio and Craven because they're both Criminal Syndicate affiliated, so they can go in. I'm going to start playing around with Killmonger in there as well, and try and maybe Green Goblin, and try and put it as a bit more of an aggressive Criminal Syndicate team. Because I think now it's doable. I've always felt Criminal Syndicate quite defensive, trying to
Yeah.
stay alive, sit on your secures and just stay alive. But I think with the new additions, you've got Sin as well. I definitely think it opens it up to be a bit more aggressive and kind of go at opponents if need be and keep the secures and the extracts. It's an added bonus at that point.
Yeah, they're definitely getting a lot more. The more characters that get added, the more, like you said, the more flavorful, more flavorful, and more offensive they become, rather than, like you said, trying to hold out just on objectives, sitting there.
And it means that things like the team tactics cards, you can be a bit more focused, because I had to basically put 2 in for Asgard, so I can definitely get rid of those 2. So that frees it up. I will probably play around with illicit tech, because I think, again, the more aggro you go, the more that's going to help. Playing
Yeah.
something like Gamma with crossbones just sitting at the back, shoots that off into a clump of them, they all get incinerated, and then you've got the likes of Craven and Killmonger going into them to do some serious damage. I think could be quite interesting, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
And again, MODOK as well. Not sure how much that pointed up is, but even that. I mean, realistically, what Killmonger's 4, Kingpin's 4, MODOK puts you on 13. Crossbones and Craven puts you on 19. So it's not.
Yeah, it's not
It's not
too bad.
impossible. The only thing is 19 tends to be demons, which is going to give Incinerate anyway, so perhaps
Yeah.
not gaining too much there. But it's definitely something to play around with and see what I can do. So yeah, overall, very hyped for future events. Unfortunately, I don't have anything currently planned until the Halloween one in Element, so I'm going to be on the lookout for future events to fill the gap between now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And we've decided we're going to do a little league again.
We are, and we're going to meet in person as well, rather than, well, a mix of TTS and in person, but hopefully more in person than TTS.
Absolutely. I think TTS is a great tool, and I'm going to use it to try out some of my rosters. But overall, I think playing in real life, it's what the game's designed for, and it's
100%, yeah.
definitely much more fun. So yeah, today I ordered a bunch of Spider Foes. So I ordered the Craven and Mysterio box and the Carnage with
Lizard.
I ordered
Is that?
Carnage
Yeah.
and Lizard. And again, I think Lizard fits quite well into Criminal Syndicate if you want to go that more tanky defensive route.
Yeah.
He can fill that as well. So I've got Doc Ock and I've got Green Goblin along with Venom and Kingpin. So I'll actually have all 8 Spider Foes.
Right now.
So there's a lot of synergies between the two now from that perspective. And as I say, I've got Sin to paint up as well, so I'll play around with her and see how that works with a bit of Sin Cabal in there.
Yes.
It's a bit of a change up because again, there's a lot of characters that can fit in both there. So lots of experimenting coming up, but I bought those through Blackgate Games. So we are sponsored with Blackgate Games through the Across the Bifrost Nexus. So if your local game store doesn't have what you want in, go and check them out at blackgames.co.uk. Great service, got good prices there, got some good discounts. So go check them out. But I actually ordered it slightly wrong today and got straight in touch with them, and they were straight back on the response.
Excellent.
Doing me a refund because I don't know why I'd got in my head that I needed Research Station, and I borrowed Research Station off Lee. And then today, when I was ordering it, I was like, which box is Research Station in now? It's the Wonder and Quicksilver. So I ordered that, and then about 2 minutes later, I was like, I've got that box somewhere. And I turned around and it's in a pile unopened. I was like, right. Yeah, I don't need that. So I swapped it for Dr. Sinister.
That's a bad sign that you're getting too deep in when you forget the boxes
Completely.
that you've got.
And the ironic thing is, like I say, I borrowed the card off Lee for the weekend, and I didn't even need to do that because I actually had the card there. So it just proves I'm losing my mind a little bit there. But yeah, like I say, great customer service there. Straight back on, able to sort that out and give me a slight refund because, like I say, I swapped that for Mr. Sinister, and I also went with another box set which I've forgotten already. So I've got 4 box sets on the way, so that should be good.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing them on the table soon.
Yes, I need to get them painted up and get them to a position where I can start using those. So yes, so that's what we've got. Like I say, I'm looking for some events coming up, and we've got our little local league. We're going to try Longshanks, which is the new tournament organizer app.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure whether you call it an app yet. I think it's still just a website. But that's had a lot of talk in the community, so that should be interesting, and we'll try that out.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to actually playing some games again because it's been a little while since I'm trying to think the last time we played. Probably at yours?
Probably, because that was near the end of the league, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was probably around then. So yeah, I'm looking forward to actually getting some games in again. Should be good.
Excellent. Yeah, like you say, should be good, and we should be. I need to paint up some more of my scenery as well. I'd kind of focused on characters, but I feel like I need to do a week or 2 blitz of just scenery just to get a fully painted table, and then I can get back to doing some characters.
Nice one.
Just on that, then the event, I posted a couple of pictures, and some people said that the scenery seems sparse. Our pod, all 3 tables, was using the cosmic terrain that Atomic Mass Games has put out. I do think it looks a bit sparse. They were all space maps as well, which doesn't help. There's no roads or anything like that, so it does feel a little bit sparse. But I didn't feel in game at all that there was a problem. We weren't playing anybody who had lots of throws, so it didn't really impact it in that sense. So no, it wasn't a problem from there.
Fair enough. No, I think terrain can, like in friendly games, I think it looks great, like with a properly dense table. But I think in events, you can't have it too dense because then it just looks, not looks, but it becomes a bit more clunky, and especially with characters with throws and that, it can kind of change the game very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it was a nice balance. So there we go.
Excellent. Okay.
Right. Well, we'll get out of here. So thank you very much for staying with us to the end. Chalmers, if people want to get hold of you on the socials.
On the socials, I am at talesofwargames.
And that's both on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes.
I am at martinswaffield on Twitch, on Twitter and Instagram, and I am spooky on Discord. I'm in most of the Discord groups now. I've been pushing that, but there are so many Discord groups now, and there are so many within each Discord group. There's multiple channels, so it's hard to keep up with it all. But it is worth getting on because there is a lot of really interesting talk on some of those with some top players. So
nice one.
If in doubt, jump onto the Discords. And until next time, goodbye.
Take care.